Namaste and welcome once again to the Amazing Veda podcast with Dr. Pariksith Singh. Thank you, sir, for joining us. And
Thank you.
yeah, I have a smile on my face because I can't help but recollect our very first episode, which was the first love song of humanity, where, the word ire, and, it reminded me of the word id in Freud, which is the seat of desire. So, and passion. So, agnim ire purohitai. So, I think this is the first verse of the Vedas, and perhaps we should listen to it and its
Yes.
sonorous beauty, its resonance. So, I request you to please play a version of it that you like.
So I have it online. It's a website called Veda Vriksha, which is means the tree of the Veda. And I'll play it. I hope you can hear it, but let me try it. श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः अग्निमीळ पुरोहितं यज्ञस्य देवमृत्तिरम् होतारं रत्नदातमम् अग्निः पूर्वे भिरर्षिभिरेद्योनोदनैरुता स देवो अवक्षते. I'll just stop here because it is very
Yeah.
resonant.
It's very resonant and it's very intense. And in fact,
Yes.
we must celebrate the fact that these were supposed to be very secret chants. And if
Yes.
we were 200 years ago in time, it would have been very hard for normal people to even listen to these chants that were so highly, so to speak, revered and were. But today we live in a different world, thankfully, and knowledge is available to us. In fact, we are experiencing a sort of renewed interest in the Veda, as we mentioned last time. And I was, in fact, joking about the Vedas going viral, and in a way, it's a translinguistic pun because in Hindi or Sanskrit you have the word viral, and
Right.
that viral means very rare. It also means narrow, but it means very precious. So the precious Vedas are now so widely available that they've become viral, but not in that toxic, poisonous sense. But I want us to go back to Agni, this fascinating deity about whom we spoke last time, the fire within, the fire in the belly. You light up my life, the light in your eyes, words that we and phrases that we express when we fall in love with someone. And I think you have a tweet about this. So I request you to read that tweet out because, viewers, we are doing this wonderful, you might say, mission. We are trying to colonize a medium which is so polemical and so full of cantankerous and noxious people trying to pounce on each other. I'm talking about Twitter, which is now called X. And instead, we are fertilizing it and uplifting it with the Veda, thanks to Dr. Singh. And Dr. Singh is using it, I would call it his Veda journal, his Veda diary. So
Yes.
he has these wonderful insights at all times of the day and night. And bang, it goes on that platform. And there are very famous political leaders who get up at odd times of the night and are posting all sorts of things about the end of civilization. But here we want to preserve civilization. And through the Veda, we've already talked about it, the ancient texts of humanity. So please, sir, will you share your tweet with us on Agni?
Okay. Now, Agni is a symbol. So, a symbol in Vedic linguistics has a different, much more of significance than in the traditional linguistics in the modern world. So, I just want to put that, and we can talk more about what a symbol means in the Vedic sense. More like it is more like what Mallarmé called a symbol. It is beyond the objective world. It is even beyond the subjective world. It is a reality of its own. That's how Mallarmé saw it. And that's how he saw poetry. So let me read this and then we will come back to this. Sri Aurobindo said, Agni is Tejas. It is the Shakti of Chitta. I'm sorry for the Sanskrit words, we will come to that. That helps explain Agni's various names and forms at each level of existence. In the physical, Agni is external fire. In mind, he is willpower or Ichha Shakti. In the emotional world, he is Mitra and Varuna. He's in prana, he is Jathar Agni. In the higher spaces of mind, he is Indra. In the highest state of consciousness, Agni Deva is Saurya or the sun, Surya. He is various devas in the multiplicity, yet is he always one, the unifier and connector, the womb of all devas. For at the end, Chit and Chitta Shakti are always one.
Wow. So this is such a comprehensive definition of Agni as as you said, a multifaceted and multifarious symbol. I would call it almost like a glowing ember. So
Yes.
when you blow on the ember, it starts glowing, and otherwise it's it's hot, so you can't touch it. But sometimes it's dark. So a symbol is something that actually you have to breathe life into, because it exists, as you said, in a different dimension, and it's not easily available. It requires an engagement, but it's very important, at least for the viewers of this podcast, to know that our own understanding of the Veda comes from Sri Aurobindo. I mentioned that right at the beginning. So there are many different approaches to the Veda, but we find that Sri Aurobindo's approach is the most comprehensive and the most, I would say, useful in our times to elucidate, this very complicated corpus of texts, because we'll talk about that later, but because Sri Aurobindo is actually able to unlock the mystery of the Veda, because he shows that it is not merely the outpourings of primitive people, as Western Indologists thought, or of nature worshippers, or of primitive magicians, or vicars and witch doctors trying to cast spells, abracadabra, or J.K. Rowling made it much more popular. Now everybody knows a spell or two. So it's much more than that, right? And at the same time, he showed us how it is, what Sayanacharya and others had tried to explain. It's more than, just the rituals, which were, as it were, performed for specific purposes and goals and ends. That it's actually the history of the evolution of human beings, and the history, or rather the story of the eternal struggle between darkness and light, which we mentioned last time, the forces of evil and the forces of good. And in fact, as you rightly said last time, the forces of good are also the forces of wideness. In other words, that which widens and expands your consciousness, as opposed to that which contracts it. So now I would like us to go a little deeper into this fascinating Vedic deity called Agni. Can you sort of tell us how Agni, works, within us as a psychic, entity? Because one important thing Sri Aurobindo said is that everything in the Vedas is not just out there; it's also within us. And last time you spoke about the connection, the homology between, as it were, the microcosm and the macrocosm. That the human being, is a universe unto himself or herself, and all the deities that we worship outside are actually deities that we are invoking within us. So what makes Agni so special? When you say I adore Agni, why should we adore this Agni? What flames are we stoking when we invoke this deity?
So, in a very simple way, Agni is that which is pure and eternal within us, or the divine within us, to make it very simple. Now, Agni is a very rich symbol. Agni is working, presenting itself, manifesting at each in each dimension. And as we talked, in the physical, it's manifesting, in the mind, it's manifesting, in the heart, it's manifesting. But Agni is also consciousness. The, the light that you feel within, the, the flame that you feel within of being alive, of being awake, what Krishnamurti called the flame of consciousness, that is Agni. That awareness, that is pure, that is always there, no matter how much static is there, how much is happening, that awareness is always there. And that is not an individual I or an ego. That is what Sri Aurobindo has called the egoless I. That is a pure awareness. Now, Agni is the force of that consciousness. Now, we feel consciousness is always passive, but no, consciousness is can be very active. As you know, you want to do something, you have willpower. If you don't have the willpower, you will never accomplish anything. You want it to be a doctor, you work hard for 10 years, you kill yourself, pun not intended, and you become a doctor. Where did it come from? Sheer willpower. Where did that willpower come from? That is Agni. The third eye is called Agya Chakra. That is fire in your willpower. That is, the willpower is a manifestation of that fire. So your consciousness, your pure awareness is is symbolized by this fire. The love in your heart, the pure love for the divine, for everybody, for the whole universe, is agape in Greek, but Agni in your heart. It's also called Agni Pavaka, Agni that purifies. But at a higher level, as we start seeing, we see that not we are not just this body or the matter, what is called annamaya. We're not just this mind, which is called the manomaya. We are not just this vitality that is called the pranamaya. We are also something above that. In our inner space, we have a mind, and then above that is an intelligence. And that intelligence is visited by flashes of inspiration. Something suddenly comes in your head like lightning. Well, that is called Vidyut Agni, or lightning fire, which you can see parallels in the physical world, but in the inner world, inner space, inner sky, it is lightning. And you go even higher, and there is the
The
eternal light of the sun. There
sun.
is the
Yeah.
golden lid, and you open it up and you see the sun, where everything converges, everything comes together, the whole universe comes together in that center.
So
And that
would you
is called
say,
the sun.
would you say, Dr. Singh, as Shurbindo was saying, that all these deities, including the highest deity of, you know, Bhur Bhuva Swa, the world of the Swar world, that is the sun of higher consciousness. And then at the Vijnanamaya, you talked about the five koshas, where Indra, as it were, breaches or breaks through to the higher realm, the higher illumined mind. And then, the passion, the heart, you mentioned that, the heart chakra. So you see how the tantric, the yogic, all these ideas, all these notions of spiritual progress are actually derived from the Veda because they are there. But my question really is, I mean, is Sri Aurobindo trying to say that Agni is all these deities? Then why do you have all these different deities? There's only one deity. Call him
Yes,
Agni, call him Surya, call
that's
him.
right.
So, I mean, is it really polytheism, or is it just one deity manifesting as all these different deities at different levels? And I know you mentioned recently how henotheism. Max Muller, he had to actually come up with this terminology because what he was trying to say, and he was a friend of India, the people tried to run him down. So he was trying to say that, look, these people are neither monotheistic nor are they polytheistic. So he had to create a different category. So
Yes.
they seem to be polytheistic, but they're actually monotheistic. But if you say they're monotheistic, then what happens to all these deities? So you can't, in a way, discard or discount or disallow these deities because the plurality is very much there. And yet, as you said, Agni is all these. It refers to the son of higher consciousness, it refers to Indra, then in the psychic level, it refers to something else. So, how do you explain this conundrum?
Yes. So it's very interesting. And if you take a few clues from our great rishis, the seers, you may get a hint of what they were trying to say. There's a very famous phrase that is called that says "Ekam Sat." There is one truth. Bahuda
Vipra
Vipraha
Bahuda
Bahuda
Vadanti.
Vadanti.
Vipra Bahuda Vadanti.
Vipra is the wise people. They call it by different names. One truth, people call it by different names. But here in our world, that one truth manifests in an enormous profusion of forms and names. You may say excessive profusion of in names and forms. And look at this universe. I mean, it's fabulous, isn't it? And yet, that beautiful unity is always there in the multiplicity. We may not see it because of our mental awareness, but it is always there. It's like the ocean coming out in waves. Now, would you say that each wave is separate? Would you say that each wave, if you look at the wave, yes, it is separate. So then you have polytheism. Each is a separate deva. Yet, each deva is part of that ocean, right? So each deva is the ocean because each wave is the ocean. You cannot separate the wave from the ocean. The moment you see that, you see a tremendous dynamic existence that is beyond our mental concept of one or many. It is both at the same time and yet beyond. You cannot limit it in a mental framework. Because if you say, okay, there are only waves, then are you writing off the ocean? If you say there is only the ocean, then are you writing off the waves? But if you say there is water, maybe water is connecting the waves and the ocean. Or, as the Vedic rishis would say, all are there. Each has an existence. Each should be honored, appreciated, and in a holistic view, in an integral view, all exist, all are true. So that is the challenge that modern minds have because we like to pin it. If I say, what is this? You're going to say, this is a pen. This is only a pen. However, if you go to a quantum physicist, what is he seeing? He's seeing electrons. Maybe
Article.
he's not even seeing electrons, he's seeing quarks. Maybe he'll say this is energy. Maybe he'll say, no, 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 this is just a field. It- you- the same thing becomes so many different things. So I think it is what you would call a shift in perspective. And as we widen our perspective, we are able to hold different viewpoints at the same time, which are not contradictory, but almost like music, they exist at the same time. They're not falsifying each other, but it really becomes more and more beautiful as you see everything in its relative value. I
So,
don't know
so,
if that
so,
makes
so correct
sense.
me if I'm wrong. I think this is fascinating, but also very important because many of our divergences and differences today, whether they're ideological or religious, have resulted in wars and so much hatred, even political ideologies. But the Vedas are showing you a way of not just coexistence, but a compatibility at a higher level. Because, as I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but Vedic deities don't fight with each other. In
No, they
fact,
are, yeah, they are
you
there to
see,
help us.
no, not only that. I'm saying
Yes.
when we come to the Puranas or the later texts like the epics, even the
Yes.
Greek epics and the Hindu epics, each deity has a favorite hero. And then you see Athena supporting somebody and Zeus is supporting somebody else. So that is much different. I think I hesitate to use that word, but it's almost a degradation of the
Yes.
Vedic idea, where the deities, they never fight with each other. You never see Indra fighting with Varun or Varun fighting with Surya or Savitur. In fact, it's very interesting. Sometimes you have these uh, tussles or these dialogues between Agastya and Indra. And that's one of those fascinating dialogues in the Veda which Aurobindo has also written about, where Agastya, standing for the human being, wants to quickly reach the highest realm. And Indra is saying, hey, dude, wait a minute. So let me ask you this now, coming back to Agni, this, excuse me, this multifaceted deity. You know, now, let's say I want to invoke Agni. I have an exam, I have a big challenge, I have a project to submit. I want to accomplish something in the real world. How do I do it? I want to learn from, my study of the Veda or listening to you. How am I going to energize my being so that I can accomplish whatever it is I'm trying to do?
So Agni is Tejas. Tejas is pure, intense energy that comes out of a transformation. You do not get distracted. You know what brain rot? What we call brain rot nowadays. Every 5 seconds you need a new message, and your Instagram or what? I have nothing against Instagram, but focus, concentrate. Agni first thing is focus, energy, purity, intensity, and an upward movement. If you notice fire, Agni is one of the definitions of Agni, according to the dictionary, is it is a movement upward. And if you light a fire, a flame, even in the physical world, it's always moving upward. So that aspiration to become better, to transform yourself, to change yourself. So a concentration, which means forget all the distractions. You are that fire, you are that purity, but don't get distracted, because if you're distracted, then there'll be only smoke. You throw things in it. No, focus. That focus will bring its own spin-off. It bring a virtuous cycle. You will learn to feel the joy of knowledge, the joy of truth, the joy of being, just being who you are. You don't need anybody outside to validate you, because you have it all inside. You have the whole universe within you. You have the truth of the universe within you, and you can do anything you want. That is what Agni teaches you. You can go to the highest heights, and you can be the sun with the whole at the center of the world. You can be Indra to take away all obstructions. You can be the power. You can be love, like Mitra and Varuna. Varuna is the expansive
Expansion,
consciousness, the
expansion.
ocean, like the Uranus, right? The ocean is Varuna. So we can be wide and embrace the whole universe. You can be
And we
loving.
actually experience it, Dr. Singh, that when people's heart, as it were, has opened up and they're very
Yes,
warm-hearted, you feel so attracted to them.
yes, yes,
Like the first time I went to Pondicherry and I went to the
yes,
dining room and I saw the photo of the mother, I just felt as if I was so loved and held,
yes,
like
yes,
Mata Amritanandamayi, who always
yes.
hugs the hugging saint.
That's right.
So, as you've said, these different levels at which Agni operates, you know, and then at a lower level, at the Annamaya Kosha, it makes you strong. You want to play football, you want to, or maybe soccer now. It's in fashion. You have to run 3 laps. Agni is going to
Yes,
energize your
yes.
cells to get it done.
Yes, purify the cells, digest your food properly, eat on time, don't distract yourself, take care of your body. The body is very important, the body is not rejected. Don't eat junk food. Only feed the purest into this purity that you are. You are Agni. And so once you realize that, then you say, this is the best part of me. And you can say, I love Agni, which is,
While listening to you, I was also thinking about how the entire Vedic, you might say, drive or the momentum or you know the Vedic approach or orientation is always from the lower to the higher.
yes,
For example,
yes,
when we heard the mantras, we say mantra uchcharana. That word
yes,
uccha means you're
yes.
going. So the
That's right.
mantra, even the breath is going like that.
Yes, yes,
In Kashmir Shaivism, they say that the apana, that is breath coming down, is actually the divine descending into jiva, and then prana, breath
right.
going up, is the
Yes.
jiva or the human returning to the divine. So, they thought about it even in breath. So there is the Agni even in the breath. The breath
Yes.
is,
Yes.
as it were, stoking that flame. So I want to also ask you. You always say that fire is pure, but there are some very smoky flames. You said you throw trash into it, you throw garbage, and there are blue flames, and then there's a white flame. So,
Yes.
so Dr. Singh, don't you think that the purity of the flame depends on the fuel that you feed the flame with? And if your fuel is pure, and your fuel is your spirit, the purest
Yes.
flame, as it were, fuel you have for the flame that is inside you is your own spirit because it has
Yes.
no dross in it. So
Yes.
you have flames which are red, which are orange, or very smoky black flames. But as the fuel, as your offering becomes purer and purer and purer, you have that blue flame and then the white flame you know, where the bride of fire clasps you, as it were. Sri Aurobindo has a beautiful poem where you have nothing left for yourself. You're not even living for yourself. Every action of yours is, for the benefit of the entire cosmos, as you said. We call it the universe. One, uni means one, una, one. And yet
Yes.
it's full of variety, right? And Sri Aurobindo says, clasp me now close, O bride of fire, because he's ready. And I think that our aspiration, then, the purity, as you said, the purification, which is the first step in mysticism. Evelyn Underhill has written this wonderful book where she says the first step in spiritual progress is purification. And we have in the Yoga Sutras the Yama and the Niyama, Ahimsa, Satya, Brahmacharya, Asateya, and Aparigraha. So that is actually the Vedic scheme that if you want to progress on the spiritual path, you need an ethical foundation. The Buddhists also
Yes.
have it. The Buddhists have the Eightfold Path, they have the Panchashila, but everywhere in your own life, I mean, if the flame has to be pure, I'm coming back to the flame of Agni. If the flame has to be pure, you have to feed it the right fuel. So let me request you to read the tweet one more time now at the end
Yes.
of our session, and we will try and post links to it, and you can study it and send us questions to Dr. Singh or to myself. We'll be happy to try to address them in our next podcast.
I will just this time I'll translate the word so that people have a little help. Sri Aurobindo said Agni is Tejas. Tejas is a very difficult word to translate, but you may call the pure and divine energy which creates the universe. It is the Shakti of Chit. Shakti is force and Chit is consciousness. So it's consciousness force, the force of consciousness that helps explain Agni's various names and forms at each level of existence. At each level of at each dimension where we live, Agni presents itself in a different way. In the physical, Agni is external fire. In mind, he is willpower or Ichha Shakti, as we say in Sanskrit. In the emotional sphere, he is Mitra and Varuna. Mitra is friend, love, friend, harmony, and Varuna is wideness, expansion of consciousness. In prana, he is Jatharagni, digestion, all your movements, all the physiologic processes. In the higher spaces of mind, he is Indra, Indra or the lightning, the mind that is illumined, the consciousness that is illumined. In the highest state of consciousness, Agni Deva is Surya or the sun. The sun represents the ultimate purity of the divine, what is called the Sad Chidananda in Sanskrit. He is various devas in the multiplicity, yet is he always one, the unifier and connector, the womb of all devas. For at the end, Chitta and Chitta Shakti, consciousness and the force of consciousness, are always one.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. As usual, we end on a note of oneness. And we invite all of you to experience the Agni in you, that purificatory energy, the energy of consciousness. And we wish you good digestion as well, but
Yes.
eventually an expansion of the heart, the illumination of the mind, the illumined mind, which eventually, I hope, leads us to a true grasp of our real nature, which is one with the divine. With these
Yes.
words, we wish you a wonderful afternoon or evening, wherever you are. And please join us again, like and subscribe to this channel. And thank you, Dr. Singh, very much once again for this wonderful journey in appreciating the amazing Veda. Namaste.
Namaste.